Hey guys, welcome to our daily encounter. In 1 Corinthians chapter 16 and verse 14, the Apostle Paul encourages the church at Corinth to let all that you do be done in love. That was a very important instruction for them to receive. As we've gone through the first book to the Corinthians, we find that, that was something that they were struggling with. They were very divisive. They were often motivated by selfish desires. They were also boasting about spiritual gifts and fighting over doctrinal issues. And the Apostle Paul wanted them to do all that they did out of love, being motivated by love. And if you think about it, this is a good instruction for all of us because, a lot of what we do throughout our day and throughout our lives is really oftentimes motivated by our own desires, how things will work out for our own benefit, and really just looking out for number one. And oftentimes we aren't that motivated by love. We might do some loving things, but we spend most of our times really just looking out for ourselves. But what would our lives be like? Perhaps we could imagine what our lives would be like if we were to do all that we do out of love. I think there would be some great benefits, not only because we would be, of course, obeying what we're instructed to do here in 1 Corinthians, but there'd be some practical advantages to living a life in which we were doing all that we did out of love. For one, we would never lack motivation for good works. Perhaps that's one of the most obvious things. We would always be motivated for good works. Sometimes we get burned out doing good works. Sometimes we just aren't motivated at all to be engaged in good works. Or maybe we've been doing good works for some time and we just want to give up. Because maybe at first we don't think that we really see any benefit in ourselves for going out and doing good works. Or maybe as time goes on, we begin to see that this isn't working for our advantage. Maybe it becomes more challenging than we thought it was going to be. We begin to recognize what a great sacrifice it's going to be to engage in this particular good work. And we begin to lose motivation for that good work. And of course, if we're doing good works and the only motivation we have is how we can be benefited and how it will help us out, obviously we're going to run out of steam very quickly. But if we're motivated out of true love for other people, and if it's love that is driving the train that's moving us forward into good works, then we will have a constant source of motivation for doing good works. We will live a more fulfilled life if we're living by love. People who live just for themselves, entirely for their own, benefit, oftentimes they don't feel very fulfilled. They don't live very fulfilled lives. They might be successful. They might have great businesses, or they might be educated. But when it's all said and done, they're not really fulfilled because they've lived just for themselves. And perhaps they come to the realization that, everything that I've done for myself will die with myself. And there's really no lasting benefit to that. But if we want to live a really good, fulfilled life, we must live a life that is motivated by love. Also, if everything that we do is motivated by love, we will be storing up treasures for ourselves in heaven. We'll be storing up heavenly treasures as we go about our daily lives, loving others, putting other people first, having goodwill towards others, doing what is good for others. In doing so, we will be storing up treasures in heaven. If we live for ourselves, we might store up treasures here on earth, but as Jesus said, eventually those treasures will be destroyed. But if we're living out of love and motivated by love, we'll be storing up eternal treasures that will last forever. And then when we're motivated by love, we will find ourselves less depressed, less anxious, and less angry. Not that those things don't sometimes come as waves into our lives, even if we're living a life of love, but it minimizes the effects of those things, because whenever we are just focused on ourselves and looking inward all the time and just looking at how things are affecting us, oftentimes that does lead to depression, anxiety, anger. But when we're outward focused, when we're more concerned about other people's benefit, and we're, more motivated by doing good works and seeing what's best for them, it can allow us then to not be so focused on what's going on in us, and therefore take the life out of depression, anxiety, and anger. And then also, there's great freedom in love. There's just a freedom that comes with not living for yourself. The more and more we live for ourselves, we kind of build a cage for ourselves because we want to protect ourselves. We want to protect our stuff. We want to, we're scared that we're going to lose what we have, or we're scared that we're not going to achieve our goals or our dreams. And it's really a life of bondage. But whenever we let that go and we say, you know what, I'm just going to love God with all of my heart, soul, mind, and strength. I'm going to love my neighbor as myself. And love is the most valuable thing that I can possess in this earth. It's very freeing to know that. And to know that we don't need all the other stuff as long as we have the most precious thing in life, and that is love. And so all these different benefits and more come from living a life of love. When we do all that we do in love, we find ourselves never lacking motivation for good works. We live a more fulfilled life. We store up treasures for ourselves in heaven. We live a life less depressed, less anxious, less angry, and there's great freedom that's attached to that type of life. And so let's take Paul's instruction, let all that you do be done in love, to heart today. And not only put it to heart, but also put it to action. And see if we can start being outward focused and looking at how we can help our fellow man, and then also how we can serve our God and our King. So these are some things we can reflect on and think about as we do our readings today. With that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.